back to another exciting and riveting episode of Team G503 here on YouTube. It's getting a little later now. Well, it's not that late at nighttime, but the sun has gone down and it is freezing here in Charleston, South Carolina. I didn't forget how to do that. Anyway, this next video is going to be installing the fender, the flat fenders on the 1943 Willys MB, and that's kind of a favorite thing. That's what kind of designates these Jeeps against the ones that become rounded and then they get progressively, and don't get started, Scott. People get upset. You start making fun of their Jeeps. I like all Jeeps, but we're going to be putting the fender on in this video. Check it out. Before I get started here, I've got my MB GPW fender anti-squeak kit from Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts with the diagram, and it's a sort of cotton loom material flat, and I believe it has asphalt coating on it, and you see most of the holes are pre-punched, and that's a nice thing. One of them is not. I'll show you that later in the video, and I've got the original hardware that I took off the fenders, with the exception of that new lock washers and that one washer you see that's marked, but I've cleaned them all up on the wire wheel, and I will be reinstalling these. Before you start also, make sure you take a tap and go through the threads on all the locations for the different size bolts. You'll be doing yourself a huge favor. It'll make it really easy to install the bolts back in the frame, especially if you've painted or had any grease or debris inside. Okay, I've got the passenger's fender on here, and unfortunately I did not film a good angle of me putting this on. Basically, I just lifted it up over the tire and I installed the two bolts in the support there. If you've got a punch or some sort of tool, you can help yourself line those up and down. It makes it really easy, and also you can hold the fender on there while you install the bolts as well. With the two bolts installed, you can see here that most of my holes are very close to where they line up to the grill and to the body tub, so it looks like I've got this fender back on. Now, I haven't tightened anything up yet, and throughout this video, I will not tighten anything up until the very end. Okay, take a look here at the first piece of the anti-squeak kit we're going to put in. Notice those two angles. Those angles coincide with that form there on the tub. Just going to go ahead here and slip this inside between the two pieces of metal, and I'm going to try to line the holes up the best as I can. But the trick to this is to line the top hole up, get the other ones close, because you can move this around a bit with your hand. And again, the bolts are not tightened yet, so you'll have some play room in there where you can get all these lined up. So I've installed the top bolt, and now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to show you down exactly what I'm talking about moving this anti-squeak piece here. You can slide it back and forth to get those holes perfectly lined up. And when you see the threads in the cowl where you're supposed to install your bolts, you can just simply push them through the hole. You've got enough room in there to do it, and I'm going to show you here. I've got on my other two that are installed, but see how this moves just probably like 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, so you can kind of get that all wiggled in there and lined up, and then you've got your 3 bolts, flat washers, and lock washers installed, and this bolt hole here on the step is lining up perfectly, so far, so good. The next piece here is a short piece with only one angle on the one end and that's square on the other. It's about 6 inches or so long, and that top angle is going to go up, so the point is going to go on top of the step here. And I'll slide this in and show you exactly what I mean. Now, in this particular piece, I'm going to have to mark my own bolt hole. So what I'm going to do is hold that in place with my hand, and I've got a magic marker that's silver, and I'm just going to mark that hole and fill it all the way in with the magic marker, and then I'll take it out, and then I can cut it. So I've done that, and I pull it away here, and I'll show you the mark I made. You can either do that with a punch, or you can do that with a razor knife. It cuts really easily, and you should have no problem with it. Here I've installed the bolt and the washer on the front from the fender backside apron to the step on the opposite side, and I'll show you the back side as we will have to put a lock washer and nut in there as well. So get underneath here now. We've hold our little anti-squeak piece here in place, and I've got the lock washer and nut already installed on the back here. Again, leave these loose until the very end, and then we'll go through a sequence and we'll tighten everything down. Our next piece is going to go onto the ears, as I call them, on the lower apron there of the fender. And this one, again, is probably about 4.5, 5 inches long, and it's got the 2 holes already punched in it. Now, there is a radius that's cut into those 2 ears, and I am not going to cut that area out. I'm going to go ahead and leave that in there the way it is. And I've got my original bolts, and I've got the size there for you on the screen, and we've got those installed. Again, I'm not going to cut out that center there. You could, I guess, if you wanted to, but I'm going to be painting this in the end. I think it'll all blend in just nicely. We'll move up front here now to where the fender connects to the grill. And again, my holes are still lining up, and if you notice, those are kind of slotted, so you've got an adjustment there also. Now here's our last piece. We've got this one piece that's got 2 square ends on the end, and notice there's a little bit of a difference between the lengths there on how the holes are spaced. So what you're going to want to do is the 2 that are farther apart, you're going to want to start at the top, and I did this just like I did the back side, is where I started at the top and then used a punch to align these holes and the holes inside that anti-squeak material, and that way I can get them all lined up and I can install my 3 bolts, and then we can go ahead, like I say, and tighten everything down at one time. Let's take a look last time again. We've got everything ready to go. We've got them just a little bit, so I just snugged them up with my hand, and that fender I believe is going to go right on there square how it's supposed to. It is original fender that I did quite an extensive bit of body work to during the restoration of the Jeep, so I didn't think that I would have any issues with this. The way I tightened the bolts in sequence was I did the ones on the front here to the grill, and then I did the ones that were on the back side towards the column. I just snugged them up by hand, made sure everything was in line, and then I tightened the two that were on the main support there. Now, the only difference between the driver's side and the passenger side is these two bolts are in the ear knockout location, I'll call it, there on the fender apron, and you're going to have to go ahead and trace out and cut that out there so it can go over the top of the bolts. And then you've got this one little piece that's down in here on the driver's side on the frame. That bolt size is 5/16, 24 by 1.25 long. And you see there, I've got that all set up inside the go. It's all tightened up. Now I'm going to show you this one more time. When you put the fenders on now, tighten your front and rear bolts here that I'm showing you with my finger. Just snug them up with your hands and then come down to the center support area there. Tighten those two bolts up, then go back and tighten everything up. The last bolts you want to tighten are the ones on those ears, as I call them. And we've got it all paying up now. It's ready to go. Show you the engine compartment one more time. Stay tuned for more new videos. There you go, there you go. Yeah, I skipped a little step. I didn't film the part where I was putting the fender on there and reaching underneath, and then I was just, the real reason was I did film it, but my rear end was the only thing that you could see in the camera, so I couldn't put that in the video. This is, this is like a PG channel. So anyway, the fenders are on, all the anti-squeal, anti-squeak strips are installed, and now we can progress on with the blackout light switch and the blackout light wiring that goes through the driver's side fender. If you'd like to subscribe, you can do so by hitting that subscribe button down there. The subscription's been huge lately, and I'm really excited about that. I think that's got something to do with a lot of people being in the garage, even though it's cold, and we're working on our projects and getting stuff done. But I really appreciate all the support and the following. Until next time, my friends, keep it safe, keep those fenders on, and happy Jeeping.